Hey everyone, welcome back to another response video. Today we're going to be addressing Trent Horn from Catholic Answers, specifically his video titled 3 Traps for Online Christians. In his final point, he attacks the very real problem of Christians abusing anonymity on the internet, but I found that in doing so, he attacked the entire concept of internet anonymity altogether, with very few and minor exceptions. Disclaimer: I have no hatred in my heart for Trent. I actually used to be a patron for his podcast. Don't attack him or his family, you'd just be proving him right. I'm making this video rather than reaching out privately because the matter is unfortunately entirely impossible, as you'll soon find. I even agree with the first 2 points he raises. My only issue is with his third point. With that said, let's get into it. To start, I agree with limiting social media use. I only use YouTube, Twitter, and Discord. YouTube, well, for obvious reasons, Twitter for networking and building an audience, and Discord for a community.
Sometimes a person may use their real picture, but not their real name. In other cases, they use a fake name and a fake or nondescript picture, like Crusading Knight, Female Saint, Anime Avatar, and Frog.
Uh-oh, that's me. I'm half of those. Yeah, so this is why I can't reach out to Trent privately about this. He doesn't take my kind seriously. That's on top of the fact that he's just kinda impossible to reach in general. Now, Trent starts to lay the groundwork for an ultimatum which he gives later in the video. For now, he establishes 3 legitimate use cases for anonymous profiles online.
For example, you might be a teenager from an anti-Catholic home trying to learn about Catholicism, and you don't want to lose your internet privileges, so you have an anonymous account to ask questions. Or you may be a Muslim doing the same thing in an anti-Christian country that would do a lot worse than ground you. Or you may be a mature Christian who wants to ask about an intimate personal problem, and you want to be anonymous for a genuine sake of privacy.
The issue here is that all of these examples come with the implication that you make the account, do your business, and then never touch it again. That's not how almost anyone engages with social media, nor should it be. Here's my central objection to Trent's thesis. Christians should be present on the internet, living out the faith among the heathens as an example to them, and influencing culture online, not just as big public figures, but among the crowd, in the world. In 1990, St. John Paul II said that no believer in Christ, no institution of the church, can avoid this supreme duty, to proclaim Christ to all peoples. This includes the internet, and further, it includes spaces where anonymity is either favored or outright required. Yo, Ami, I'm tired. Read this part.
Take just one corner of social media, VTubing. VTubing is a form of live streaming where you use motion capture or audio activation to control the 2D or 3D virtual avatar instead of your real-life face and body. It's huge on Twitch and YouTube, but it's also very much secular and highly dominated by women who use inappropriate and immodest models, speech, and expressions to gain attention through sexual appeal. The footage currently on screen comes from Christian VTubers who loudly and boldly proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ in this otherwise highly secular niche, while also providing healthy entertainment for Christians to consume. In order to do this, these women have to remain anonymous, else they risk being subjected to abuse by bad actors who seek to do harm. Their viewers and supporters are anonymous as well because they would be held liable for any perceived offense to the highly secular culture of VTubing and would suffer undue injustices as a result. We can't do this sort of thing without anonymity, especially when dealing with subjects that the culture considers taboo.
Alright, thank you, Ami. Back to the basement.
But in many cases, anonymous accounts are abused, so I personally consider them too tempting for Christians to use.
One would think that you, online media personality Trent Horn, who knows the risks of using websites like YouTube of all people, would account for the fact that abuse of a thing does not negate proper use. Yes, fake personas and the abuse of anonymity for the sake of dodging accountability is sinful, but the antidote isn't to remove oneself from the internet entirely, and he is suggesting that. Just wait a minute. Yes, anonymity on social media can tempt the average person to sin against charity. You know what else does that, Trent? Driving a car in a city. But to get to work, that's a temptation that you have to undertake and guard against. Likewise, if we're going to be on the internet, living among the heathens within the houses on a mission field, the answer isn't to just run away and move to an all-Christian town to avoid sinning against a neighbor, but rather to take safety precautions against the temptation to act immorally, and, of course, to have a healthy prayer life.
And if you come to despise how your avatar is perceived, you can always digitally unalive your avatar and start over with a new profile. But that's not how life works. Instead, as our Lord Jesus Christ said in Matthew 12, verses 36 to 37, I tell you on the day of judgment, men will render account for every careless word they utter. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned.
You're correct. God is watching, even when you make a new account. But doesn't this mean that Catholics who care about their salvation should mind what they say, rather than tie their identity to an account which stores mistakes in perpetuity? If God is our ultimate judge who sees all, then why should I additionally subject myself to the judgment of everyone else on the internet and potentially beyond, like job recruiters? If I let hateful words fly at my neighbor in a fit of rage, only the relevant parties, that is, myself, my neighbor, and God, know, and my neighbor and I may soon forget if we reconcile. But the internet never forgets, and many more than just the relevant parties will know. Anonymity serves to counteract this downside. It's a tool to avoid the wrath of those who would withhold forgiveness.
Now, at this point, I'll hear people say, but if people knew I was Catholic, I'd get fired from my job to justify having an anonymous account.
This is a straw man. No, Trent, it's not that we're worried about getting fired for being Catholic. It's more like if people saw me expressing controversial Catholic opinions like decrying abortion, gay pride, or gender ideology, some freak is going to phone my workplace, exaggerate my beliefs to the point of absurdism, and demand that my boss fire me, which he would because he's been pressured to do so.
First, if that's true, then you have the basis for a solid discrimination lawsuit.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Moneybags, but I, alongside 57% of Americans, live paycheck to paycheck. We can't afford to get fired in this economy, nor can we afford to dump money into a perfectly preventable discrimination lawsuit against an employer that has enough resources to handle my case and then some. This isn't a realistic answer, it's just dismissing people, which is, of course, the point of even bringing up this objection, as we'll soon see.
It sounds like you're saying you think you should deny you're Catholic so you can retain worldly goods like a job. But Christ said, "Whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven."
If I legitimately get fired from my Catholicism, so be it. But accusing Catholics who wish to safeguard their lives, families, and livelihoods against targeted harassment, threats, and slander of denying the Lord before men is ridiculously off base. By that logic, the same must be said of the legitimate use case that you established of people in Muslim countries who fear persecution.
Third, I highly doubt you're worried you will get fired just for being Catholic. You're probably worried that you will get fired because of your abusive, bigoted, or obscene behavior that you would never do in front of your employers that has nothing to do with your Catholic faith.
Sure, bigoted behavior, like saying that there are only two genders, homosexuality is a sin, abortion is murder, surrogacy is human trafficking, illegal aliens should be deported, and the general notion that you kinda like Donald Trump. You mean that sort of bigoted behavior? Because that's what people get fired for. It's crazy to me that you even used the word bigoted and that somehow didn't set alarm bells off in your head that maybe, just maybe, you might be arguing like a leftist defending cancel culture. Now, are there so-called Christians that post all sorts of abhorrent things? Absolutely. I deplore the Groyper movement, and I've even defended you and your wife on Twitter from their attacks. But once again, abuse of a thing does not negate proper use.
Even if you had a justifiable reason for people to not know you are Catholic, or you have strong views on, say, abortion, homosexuality, you don't have an obligation to be on social media. The choice isn't an anonymous or a public account. You could also just live a healthier offline life if you can't have a public social media profile.
And there it is, folks. This is the ultimatum. Stop being anonymous or get off social media. No thought given to basic internet safety or legitimate concerns about bad actors abusing one's openness about who they are online. The necessity for average Catholics to exist in various internet spaces as examples to non-believers, or even to the advertising networks that would have an infinitely easier time connecting your presence on various platforms to better harass you with advertisements. This is an absurd ultimatum that you have no right to place before us. It's the sort of thing that you make a 2-hour dissertation about in order to account for all of the relevant information, not something you shove in the last 3 minutes of a random YouTube video.
That's why we have no reason to take the testimony of anonymous accounts seriously.
When it comes to the engagement bait and things of that nature, sure, but we have no reason to take the testimony of online accounts seriously? This goes entirely contrary to your later citation of Pope Francis's reminder that behind every screen, there's a person. And if you were to have said instead that online accounts should be taken with a grain of salt or with some immediate suspicion, I'd agree, but that's not what you said. You said that we have no reason, zero, nada, to take any of what they say seriously. That's a dehumanizing attitude, Trent.
If we do use social media to share our faith, we treat it like ministering in a radioactive wasteland.
Except that this assumes that you're talking to apologists, not your average Christian. I'm not an apologist, not by trade, certainly. I make fun videos to entertain Christians who like anime. I mean this with no disrespect, but get out of your bubble. Your sphere of YouTube is not the only place where Christians exist or belong. I'm sure you agree with this, but why you neglected to mention it is beyond me. And that brings me to a major point of frustration here. I know you know better, Trent. I don't mean to psychoanalyze you, but I find it hard to make sense of this tangent of yours without accounting for your previous run-in with Groypers. It appears, at least, that you've let this beef with Fuentes and friends cloud your judgment about the state of online Catholicism. We don't need less anonymous Christians posting on the internet, we need more. It should put us to shame that one of the most impactful examples of Catholicism online, apart from apologetics, is children pretending to say Mass in Roblox. We should remain on Twitter, stream on Twitch, post videos to YouTube, really take part of this new evangelization that St. John Paul II called us to. I'm doing my part, and you're doing yours, but you disapprove of the former, and your reasoning is too heavily flawed to justify your disapproval. But then again, I'm just another anonymous crusader anime profile picture Catholic on the internet, so I'm sure Trent won't pay me any mind. That's it for me. Like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, you know the drill. If you want to hang out with Catholics like me, even if you're not quite Catholic yourself, check out the Catholic Diocese of Discord and tell them I sent you. Just know that you have to be anonymous to enter. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a blessed rest of your day.